For years, Linux desktops have lived in a strange place in the tech world. They've always been powerful, customizable, and loved by developers and enthusiasts. Yet they often struggled to capture the attention of everyday users who simply wanted a modern, polished, and easy-to-use operating system. But now something interesting is happening again in the Linux world, and this time the spotlight is on Zorin OS 19. The next major release of Zorin OS is shaping up to be one of the most exciting Linux desktop launches in years, and many people are already calling it the operating system that could finally push Linux further into the mainstream. The reason for all this excitement isn't just because it's another Linux distribution update. It's because Zorin OS has always focused on something many Linux projects ignored for years: the actual user experience. When people first hear about Linux, they often imagine complicated terminal commands, broken drivers, confusing package managers, and endless customization menus. That reputation has followed Linux for decades, even though modern Linux distributions have become dramatically easier to use. Zorin OS entered the scene with a mission to change that perception completely. Instead of focusing only on advanced users, the developers built an operating system designed for normal people. They wanted Windows users, macOS users, students, office workers, gamers, and creators to feel comfortable immediately after installation. That philosophy is exactly why Zorin OS gained so much popularity over the years, especially among users escaping Microsoft's increasingly aggressive Windows ecosystem. Now with Zorin OS 19 approaching release, expectations are incredibly high. This version is expected to deliver not only a fresh visual experience, but also major improvements under the hood that could make Linux feel more polished and premium than ever before, and honestly, the timing couldn't be better. Across the world, users are becoming frustrated with modern Windows. Windows 11 introduced stricter hardware requirements, increased advertising, deeper Microsoft account integration, more telemetry concerns, and an overall feeling that the operating system is no longer fully under the user's control. At the same time, Linux gaming has improved massively thanks to Proton, Steam Deck development, and better GPU driver support. Suddenly, the barriers keeping people away from Linux are disappearing one by one. That's where Zorin OS 19 enters the picture. Based on the newest Ubuntu long-term support foundation, Zorin OS 19 is expected to combine stability, security, and performance with a redesigned desktop experience that feels modern without becoming overwhelming. One of the biggest strengths of Zorin OS has always been its clean and familiar interface. Unlike some Linux desktops that prioritize experimentation, Zorin focuses on usability first. The layout feels immediately understandable to Windows users while still offering enough elegance to appeal to people coming from macOS. It creates a balance that many operating systems struggle to achieve. The visual side of Zorin OS 19 could become one of its strongest selling points. Linux desktops used to look outdated compared to Windows and macOS, but that is no longer true. Modern Linux distributions now offer fluid animations, adaptive themes, sharp typography, clean icons, and responsive design. Zorin OS in particular has consistently delivered one of the most beautiful desktop experiences in the Linux ecosystem. Early previews and community expectations suggest Zorin OS 19 will continue refining that design philosophy with smoother transitions, improved multitasking, enhanced theme customization, and better integration across applications. One area where Zorin OS truly stands out is accessibility for newcomers. Many Linux distributions still expect users to learn Linux culture immediately, but Zorin tries to hide complexity unless the user actually wants it. Installing software is straightforward. Drivers are often detected automatically. The desktop feels intuitive, and features like the Zorin Appearance app allow users to switch layouts and themes easily without digging through advanced settings. That simplicity matters because most users do not want to spend hours configuring their operating system. They want something that works. Zorin OS 19 is also expected to improve hardware support significantly. Modern Linux compatibility has become dramatically better, especially with newer kernels and updated drivers. Laptops, desktops, AMD graphics cards, NVIDIA GPUs, Wi-Fi adapters, printers, and Bluetooth devices are working more reliably than ever before. For many people trying Linux in 2026, the experience is shockingly smooth compared to what they expected. Zorin OS benefits heavily from Ubuntu's massive hardware ecosystem while adding its own layer of polish and optimization. Gaming is another reason why this release matters. A few years ago, telling gamers to switch to Linux sounded unrealistic. Most major games were tied to Windows, anti-cheat systems caused problems, and performance inconsistencies scared users away. But the Linux gaming landscape changed completely after Valve invested heavily into Proton and the Steam Deck. Thousands of Windows games now run on Linux with little or no configuration. In some cases, performance is nearly identical to Windows, and sometimes even better. Zorin OS has positioned itself as one of the most beginner-friendly gaming distributions because users can install Steam, Lutris, Heroic Games Launcher, and other gaming tools with minimal effort. With Zorin OS 19, gaming support is expected to become even more streamlined. Updated kernels, newer Mesa graphics stacks, better Wayland integration, and improved NVIDIA support could create a far smoother gaming experience than previous Linux generations. For casual gamers especially, Linux is no longer a compromise. And that changes everything because gaming has historically been one of the biggest reasons people stayed locked into Windows. Productivity users are also paying attention to Zorin OS 19. Remote work, cloud applications, and cross-platform tools have reduced dependence on Windows-specific software. Today, many people spend most of their day inside browsers, communication apps, office suites, and creative tools that already work perfectly on Linux. Zorin OS supports applications like LibreOffice, Firefox, Chromium, Visual Studio Code, Spotify, Discord, Slack, Zoom, and many others. Thanks to compatibility layers and containerized packages, software availability is no longer the massive issue it once was. One fascinating aspect of Zorin OS is how it manages to feel consumer-focused without sacrificing Linux flexibility. Underneath the elegant interface lies a fully capable Linux environment. Advanced users can still access the terminal, customize the system deeply, run development tools, use containers, host servers, or tweak nearly every aspect of the operating system. That duality is powerful because it means beginners can start simple while power users still have room to grow. Another major trend helping Zorin OS 19 is the rise of privacy-conscious computing. More users today are questioning how much data operating systems collect. Windows and some commercial ecosystems increasingly rely on cloud integration, advertising systems, and telemetry collection. Linux distributions like Zorin OS offer a fundamentally different relationship between the user and the operating system. There are no forced advertisements, no hidden tracking systems designed for profit, and no pressure to tie every activity into a corporate ecosystem. For many users, that freedom is becoming more valuable every year. The developers behind Zorin OS have also earned a strong reputation for focusing on refinement instead of rushing features. In the Linux world, some distributions constantly experiment with radical ideas that sometimes break usability. Zorin tends to move more carefully. Features are usually polished before release, and updates prioritize reliability alongside innovation. That balance could become extremely important for Zorin OS 19 because expectations are now much larger than before. There is also growing speculation about deeper, Wayland improvements in Zorin OS 19. Wayland is the next generation Linux display server protocol replacing the older X11 system that Linux desktops relied on for decades. While Wayland adoption has faced some challenges, it brings major advantages including smoother graphics, better security, modern display handling, and improved responsiveness. More Linux distributions are transitioning toward Wayland by default, and Zorin OS 19 could play a big role in making that transition feel seamless for regular users. Performance optimization is another area where Linux continues to surprise people. Many users switching from Windows immediately notice faster boot times, lower resource usage, quieter background activity, and more responsive multitasking. Linux generally avoids the heavy background telemetry and bundled services that increasingly slow down commercial operating systems over time. Zorin OS combines those Linux efficiency advantages with a polished desktop environment that still looks modern and premium. One reason Zorin OS resonates with so many people is because it understands that design matters. For years, Linux communities often dismissed visual polish as unimportant, focusing only on technical capability. But operating systems are something people interact with every single day. A beautiful interface, smooth animations, thoughtful layouts, and cohesive design language genuinely affect user satisfaction. Zorin OS recognized that earlier than many competitors, and Zorin OS 19 appears ready to push that philosophy even further. The rise of AI-powered features inside commercial operating systems may also unintentionally benefit Linux distributions like Zorin OS, as companies integrate cloud-connected AI systems deeper into Windows and other platforms. Some users are becoming uncomfortable with the growing complexity and data collection involved. Linux offers an alternative path where users remain in control of what software they install and how their systems operate. Zorin OS 19 could arrive at exactly the right moment for users looking for a cleaner, simpler, and more user-focused desktop experience. What makes this moment especially interesting is that Linux is no longer just for enthusiasts anymore. Schools are using Linux. Developers rely on it daily. Content,